just complete nothing, falling into darkness and never stopping. And before we get into today's video, I just want to let you guys know that this video is for educational purposes only. Please remember to be kind to everybody everywhere, in your everyday life, in your home, in the grocery store, and especially in the comment section down below. Please do not show hate to anybody, anywhere. So good morning, good morning, good morning. How is everybody doing today? I hope you all are having an amazing day. I hope you all are having a great week. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about something that I find quite fascinating, and that is near-death experiences and things that people say that they have experienced when they have crossed over and then come back. Before we get into it, though, I did want to let you guys know, if you don't already know, hi, my name is Christina. I do have a second channel, which is Casually Christina. We just do things more casually over there. I also have a Patreon. My Patreon's for 18 and up, and over there we talk about more personal stuff. We go live over there. There's a $2 tier for all the true crime stuff that cannot go onto YouTube due to their terms and policies. That goes over on my Patreon under the $2 tier. If there are videos that y'all have requested that you have not seen me do over here, they could possibly be on my Patreon, like the Carr Brothers, or which is the Wichita situation, or P. Diddy. There's multiple videos of P. Diddy over there and different stuff like that. Just make sure you read the full about section and what each tier offers before you join. I'm also on Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, and I'm also on Like to Know It. And Like to Know It is a platform where you can find links to a lot of the things that you guys ask about, things that I like or use, everything from household items, clothing items, makeup, skincare, cooking utensils, workout gear, animal stuff, kids' clothes, all of the links that I can post. I post those over on my Like to Know It. And all of those platforms are linked down in the description box if you would like to come and check me out. So have you ever thought about what happens after you pass away, or when you're in the process of crossing over? I'd be willing to bet that most of you all have. Now, of course, we won't truly know for sure exactly what happens or how it happens until we do cross over. I mean, some of us have our strong beliefs. Y'all know I do. But some people claim to already know. Now, these people that we're going to be talking about today claim to know what the afterlife is like after they had a near-death experience. So what is a near-death experience? A near-death experience is a profound personal experience associated with death or impending death. They usually occur during a reversible clinical death, and there are many different explanations for them, from scientific to religious. Now, scientists say that NDEs, which is near-death experiences, are a subjective phenomenon resulting from disturbed bodily multisensory integration that occurs during life-threatening events. Basically, they explain it as it just being your brain doing weird things. And of course, there is simply the religious explanation. Now, many different religions claim that there is an afterlife, and these people who experience NDEs are just getting a preview of it. Historically, most near-death experiences have been reported to be positive experiences where people claim that they experience total serenity, total security, like this warmth and joy, complete happiness, and their life flashes before their eyes. The presence of a light, and even seeing like their dead loved ones. Some have said that they almost did not even want to leave because it was so peaceful. However, and there's always a but, there have been some reports of negative experiences, like this extreme feeling of distress, devastation, seeing hell-like imagery, or even possibly worse, a complete void, like the nothingness. And when I think about a complete void or just nothingness, I think about floating in space all by myself, just like black space, nothing there, no sound, no body, complete emptiness. There's nobody ever coming. You're just floating and floating by yourself for eternity. If you've ever seen the 2013 movie Gravity with Sandra Bullock, if you haven't, I highly recommend it. That kind of gives like a glimpse of what I feel like the nothingness is like, just complete nothing, falling into darkness and never stopping. And now some people have even said while they were in the process of actively dying, their NDE wasn't like hell or it wasn't like heaven, but more like an out-of-body experience. Specifically, one of the people that we're going to be talking about today is a woman named Pam Reynolds Lowery, who is said to have had one of the most well-documented and significant near-death experiences. Pam Reynolds Lowery was an American singer and songwriter. Back in 1991, when she was 35 years old, she says that she had a near-death experience during a brain operation. And when I tell y'all about this brain operation, just the sound of this alone is like, Now, before her surgery, Pam had been experiencing symptoms of dizziness, loss of speech, and she was having difficulty moving different parts of her body. So she had gone in for a CT scan that found that she had a large aneurysm in her brain, and it was close to the brainstem. Because of its difficult position, Pam was predicted to have basically no chance of surviving her surgery for this removal, but she went ahead and went in to have it done anyways. Now, this surgery wasn't just your everyday brain surgery. As a last resort, a neurosurgeon of the Barrow Neurological Institute in Phoenix, Arizona, decided that a rarely performed procedure called a standstill operation could improve Pam's chance of surviving the surgery. Now, a standstill operation refers to a medically induced hypothermia cardiac arrest, meaning Pam's body temperature was lowered to 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius. Her breathing and her heartbeat completely stopped, and the blood was completely drained from her head. Yeah, if you're thinking that this is the kind of stuff you only see on Grey's Anatomy, it apparently is a real life thing. Now, during the surgery, Pam's eyes were completely taped shut. So they've got her on the table, okay? Her body temperature's brought down to 50 degrees. Her heart's completely stopped. She is no longer breathing. Her eyes are taped shut. She cannot open them even if she wanted to with her heart stopped and not breathing and no blood in her brain. And they put these small earplugs with speakers into her ears. Now, these speakers, they were like playing different clicks and sounds, which was used to check Pam's brainstem function to basically ensure that she was reading flat on the EEG. So having these little clicks playing in her ears, which honestly would have probably been torture if she was able to hear them, was that a way if her brain ever started to work again, it would show on the EEG. Her brain was completely non-responsive with no blood in it, right? Now during it, Pam said that she heard a sound like D natural, which is the music note D. And that this music note D or D natural seemed to pull her out of her body and allowed her to literally float above the operating room table and watch the doctors perform her surgery. Pam said during this, she felt more aware than normal and her vision was more focused and clearer than normal. Basically, as she was floating above them as they're performing this procedure on her, again, eyes taped shut, heart's not beating, no blood in her brain, body core temperature at 50 degrees. She's out of there. Nothing showing up on the EEG. She's floating above the table. Her senses became so hyper aware. It was like she had more than 5 senses, and it's hard to explain because it's hard to comprehend the way that she explained it. But then Pam would say that she was able to see this like electric saw that was pulled out to use on her, and she described it to look kind of like an electric toothbrush, which is a real tool that was being used. There is no way that she would have been able to know what that tool was. She was able to describe all the little gadgets around it. She should not know any of this. Then Pam would go on to say that not only could she hear the conversations between the surgical staff, but she could even hear all of this going on even though she had those earplugs in her ears.
And I was then looking down at the body. I knew it was my body, but I didn't care. My vantage point was sort of sitting on the doctor's shoulder. I remember the instrument in his hand. It looked like the handle of my electric toothbrush. I had assumed that they were going to open the skull with a saw. I had heard the term saw, but what I saw looked a lot more like a drill than a saw. It even had little bits that were kept in this case that looked like the case that my father stored his socket wrenches in when I was a child. And I remember distinctly hearing a female voice saying,
"We have a problem. Our arteries are too small. Try the other side."
It seemed to come from further down on the table. I do remember wondering, what are they doing? Because this is brain surgery. And what had happened was they accessed the femoral arteries in order to drain the blood. And I did not understand that.
Now, at some point, Pam said that she noticed like this presence and she was pulled towards a light. She says that when she tried making out the figures, she realized that it was her grandmother and uncle and other deceased people that she knew. Pam said the longer that she was there, the more that she actually enjoyed being there, but then she remembered that she had to go back. She would later say that the uncle that she could see literally brought her back to her body, but she did not want to go, so her uncle pushed her into her body. Pam says that this sensation felt like jumping into ice water.
And I saw an uncle who passed away when he was only 39 years old. At some point in time, I was reminded that it was time to go back. Of course, I had made my decision to go back before I ever laid down on that table. But, you know, the more I was there, the better I liked it. And my uncle was the one who brought me back down to the body. But then I got to where the body was, and I looked at the thing, and I for sure did not want to get in it. Because it looked pretty much like what it was, as in void of life. And I know it would hurt, so I didn't want to get in. And he kept reasoning with me. He says, like diving into a swimming pool, just jump in. He pushed me. He gave me a little help there. I saw the body jump. I saw it do this number. And then he pushed me. And
Pam's surgery lasted a total of 7 hours, and there were a few complications that happened during the surgery. However, the surgery did end up being a success, and Pam completely recovered. Now, some professionals take this as proof that there is an afterlife. Again, the things that she was describing are not things that there's any logical or scientific way to prove why she was able to see the things that she saw, hear the things that she heard, and all of that. However, as always, there are other professionals that just completely write off her experience. One anesthesiologist say that it's a classic case of anesthesia awareness. This is a rare complication of general anesthesia where patients regain varying levels of consciousness during surgical procedures, but that does not explain what she saw. Remember, her eyes were completely taped shut. You could say that it was just her brain playing tricks on her and maybe even trying to make her feel better. But if that's the case, how do you explain the people who have NDEs that are deeply disturbing or scary? Researchers say that there are 3 types of distressing NDEs. There's Inverse NDE, which is when features that are usually reported as pleasurable in positive NDEs are actually perceived as hostile or threatening. One man in particular says that when he was thrown from his horse, he found himself floating at treetop height, and he was watching the emergency medical technicians working over his body. And while he's watching them working over his body, he was screaming, "No, no, this isn't right. Put me back, put me back." But they did not hear him. Next, he was shooting through complete darkness towards a bright light, flashing past like all of these shadowy people who seemed to be deceased family members and that they were waiting on him. He was in a complete panic the whole time, stricken by like this dark, dooming experience, and it was not enjoyable at all. He did not feel peace. He did not feel serenity. He felt darkness. The second type is called the void, and this one gives me the heebie-jeebies. This is when the person that has the NDE experiences this vast emptiness, aloneness, and isolation. For example, a man who was attacked by a hitchhiker said that he felt himself rise up out of his body. "I suddenly was surrounded by total darkness, floating in nothing but black space, with no up, no down, no left, or no right. What seemed like an eternity went by. I fully lived in this misery. I was only allowed to think and reflect." Then there's the third type, the hellish NDE. This is the least common type of distressing NDEs, so they say. I mean, I think some things is probably underreported, but let's just keep going here. The name of the hellish NDE is pretty self-explanatory, right? But it is the feeling of being in hell, or the experience. And man, there's books on this. I have watched testimonies or people talking about this experience. For example, there was this one man who said that when he was in heart failure, he felt himself falling into the depths of the earth. Like, can you just imagine just falling through the depths of the earth? And at the bottom was a set of like these high, rusty gates, which he perceived to be the gates of hell. He was completely panic-stricken, and he managed to scramble back up to the daylight.
There's a lot of like fire and things like that. And I think people, you know, in the Bible it says the world shall be cast into the lake of fire, but hell is not actual fire. It's like molten rock. It's almost like the center of the earth. And, you know, in the movies, it's all this fire and things like that. And it's not really what you would think it would be. And the torture is at a level that you really can't comprehend in the human mind. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty, it's a hard thing for sure, especially if you're going to be there for eternity. Everything in that world, in the spiritual world, is supernatural. It's just you have good and evil. So even in hell, it's supernatural because it's meant to dwell with demons and things of spiritual level of that. So what I think people will think that supernatural only exists in heaven, but it also exists in hell. So because it's so hot, and we're talking like thousands of degrees hot, and there's so much torment, your body is not burned. Your skin is not burned. It's not getting eaten by heat or anything like that. It's just you feel so much heat and so much torment, but yet your body itself is not experiencing any effect of that. And I think that's a very, very difficult thing, especially for the torment you have, because you're feeling so much pain and regret and paranoia and all of these different emotions at one time. I tell people, you know, you imagine your worst day you could ever have, and it's multiplied tenfold, thousandfold when you're in hell. It's a place that I really, you should be scared of it. I tell people, you know, I state what's true. You know, and hell is definitely a place that's a scary, scary thing.
Sebastian Junger, who is an American journalist, has reported experiencing a distressing NDE himself. Now, to me, and I'm definitely not a professional, but it sounds like he had the type called the void. He's even since put a book out about it called In My Time of Dying. Sebastian said during the summer of 2020, he was at home with his family in Massachusetts when all of a sudden he felt intense pain in his abdomen.
You know, I just felt this pain shoot through my stomach. I was like, damn, what is that? And within a few minutes, I couldn't stand up. And within about 10 minutes, I was starting to go blind. And my wife called the ambulance, and those guys got there, and you know, I was tanking really fast. And the hospital is an hour away. And by a miracle, I don't even think the doctors understand it, but by a miracle, I was still alive when I got to the hospital. I lost 90% of my blood into my abdomen. And I didn't know I was dying, but I was dying. And I was right in that sort of twilight zone. And a black pit opened up underneath me, and I felt myself starting to get pulled down into it. And I didn't want to go. Like, it was cold and dark and black and bottomless. And I just knew, like, do not go down there. I was getting pulled down into it. And right at that moment, my father, who passed away in 2012, my father sort of appeared next to me and started trying to communicate with me and comforting me. And I sort of waved him away, and the last thing I remember saying to the doctor, I was sort of losing consciousness, and the last thing I said to the doctor was, "You're losing me right now, you gotta hurry." He was trying to he'd cut my neck open, he was trying to put a line into my neck to, they pumped 10 units of blood into me, and that's what brought me back. It was really close.
Now, researchers say that people have experienced these kind of distressing NDEs have 3 different types of responses to them. First is the complete turnaround. This is when the person who experienced the NDE interprets it as a warning and wants to turn their life around or become more religious or like what they believe to be like a better person. Second is reductionism. Now, this is basically when the person who experiences this NDE treats it as if it didn't happen at all or it doesn't really have like any kind of meaning. Sometimes they even explain it away with science. And people that explain it away with science, to me, I know those types of people. Some of y'all watching this, maybe you're looking for an answer that makes like logical and comfortable sense, because the thought of there being this afterlife that you cannot control and that you could be floating in the void or is scary, and it's an uncontrollable feeling. So I believe that some people try to make sense with it, like with science. Most often, they think that it was just like a lack of oxygen causing their brain to do weird things. The third type is called the long haul. Now, these are the people who experience these distressing NDEs and struggle with them for years afterwards. They also will go on asking themselves like what they did to deserve this distressing NDE. Like with the hitchhiking guy that we talked about just a few minutes ago, he said that he does not believe in hell, but it was such a strong experience for him that there's always this like underlying uncertainty and fear. And he can't help but to wonder if this is where he's going to go after he dies. And you imagine like how creepy that feeling is. Like, oh my gosh, I don't want to die because if I do, that's where I'm going to go. What do I think? I think we definitely go somewhere when we pass away. I don't know the path to it. I don't know if it's immediately one place. I don't know if like some of these people, there's different places that you go first, depending on the situation, and then you end up in your final place. But what I do not believe is that we pass away, lights are out, and it's over. I do not believe that. I do believe in heaven. I believe in hell. But I also believe that our minds cannot fathom what that's really like. I believe we can read the Bible and try to understand, but the Bible also tells us that we cannot set our minds on the things of heaven because we can't understand it. Just like when people explain passing over and having all of these senses, like 60 senses, like being able to see a smell or hear a taste, and you can't comprehend, like, what does that mean? Does that mean with my ear I'm tasting it? I believe that we cannot understand what the afterlife is like. I compare it to trying to explain finances to a 2-year-old. You can explain it to them. You can draw pictures out. You can make flashcards, but they're not going to comprehend your finances or how to pay bills. Their minds are just not built for that at 2 years old. And that's what I think is going on with us as humans. We don't really know what it's going to be like. I see people make jokes sometimes saying like, heaven sounds boring. Like, who wants to go to heaven and just worship for all eternity? But I always think that we worship in all the things that we do. We worship when we're kind to others. We worship when we're, doing things in the name of the Lord, and we're happy and we're grateful. I even believe going and doing fun things and being grateful is an act of worship. So I can only imagine what an eternity of worship without pain and suffering, how amazing that's going to be. I mean, in my belief, there is a creator that created everything. And if all of the things that we've seen so far is so creative and so complex, I could only imagine what heaven is going to be like. We cannot even imagine how amazing and incredible that it's going to be. But I definitely believe there's something. But either way, it seems like most who have had like these NDEs, positive or negative, are affected by it for the rest of their lives. What do you think? Do you think when it's over, it's lights out and it's over? Do you think we're just pond scum that just happened to be one little cell that mixed with the other cell and just happened to grow over billions of years, and then now we're a human and it was smart enough to create the opposite, sex, and then now like, what do you believe? And then when it's over, it's over? Do you believe there's something after that none of us can imagine? Do you believe it's dark? Do you believe there's void? Do you believe that you're floating into like this spiritual black darkness of space forever? Let me know what y'all think in the comments section down below. Other than that, thank y'all for watching this video. I love y'all, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Love you guys. Bye.